Hey there, Nas here with another video. Remember chapter 14 when you first acquired the Hard Edge and you used its unique weapon skill, Infinity's End, and you saw those 4 beautiful digits? Yeah, I remember like it was yesterday. Seeing damage cap was so nice, but I thought with how early we were able to reach it, surely there must be an item later in the game that lets us surpass it, right? Unfortunately there isn't. And that led me to question, should I always be using Infinity's End? There's no way a move that has a long windup, 2 ATB costs, can always be the right option. In this video, we'll be finding that fine red line that Braver actually out DPS's Infinity's End. Like Rosh would say, I told you we were going to push it past the red line. Wind that bad boy up. Go, 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 go. This game sadly doesn't have a training dummy to test on, so I had to make work of the VR simulator our boy Chadley provides for us. I ran hours of tests on the fat Chocobo since he's easy to stagger and he has a chunky health pool. I would do roughly 10 or so Bravers and Infinity Ends to get a rough ballpark on the range for each stagger multiplier. Once I got close to what seems to be the line to push Braver above Infinity's End, I would run more tests around that area. From my tests, the damage range were usually within 400 apart from the highest to the lowest. The damage cap is 9,999, and in order to out-damage that, we need Braver at bare minimum to hit for 5,000, because at 5,000 we'll be doing 10,000 since you can use 2 Bravers per Infinity's End. This will be a 1 DPS increase over Infinity's End, but of course we're just finding that spot and we're going to be going past it to be doing way more damage in 2 hits rather than 1 slow one that is stuck at the damage cap. For equipment, I ran each weapon unmelded except for the refocus and stagger materia. I used refocus with the Goddard Demerong accessory so I could get out more Bravers and Infinity's End in the short stagger windows I was given. I used Bahamut as the summoning because it gives +4 to magic and strength, which seems perfect for Cloud. Overall, this is what the optimal stat setup is for Cloud, minus luck up for full physical builds, so it was going to represent what you would hit in actual scenarios. I'll be showing short clips of what I did to find a sweet spot with the Buster Sword. Don't worry, I won't make you sit through all the weapons. Instead, I'll have a timestamp in the description for you to jump ahead if you don't care for the boring stuff. There will also be an Excel sheet for all the weapons so you could check them out for yourself. Okay, without further ado, let's get started. The base multiplier when an enemy is staggered is 160%. So I figured that's the perfect spot to start and see what we're hitting for with Braver and move up from there. After a couple of swings, I realized this is just way too low and we would have to bump it up. But before I did that, I also wanted to see what Infinity's End is hitting for. To my surprise, we were already hitting the damage cap, if not right next to it, with the Buster Sword. I didn't think the Buster Sword would come close so early on the stagger multiplier. After 10 swings or so, I would increase it by 5% with the Whirling Uppercut. But after increasing the multiplier by 5% to 165, 170, 175, I realized that it wasn't a huge DPS increase I was looking for and I would be here for days. So instead I thought of what I would do in a realistic scenario, so this would be easier. The answer was simple, True Strike. So I started increasing the multiplier by 30 until I got closer to that magic number. 220 was looking real promising until I noticed it was 200 to 400 damage off from where I needed to be. Good thing from earlier testing I knew that all we needed was a little bump to cover the gap. I of course overshot it and 245 was way too much. Going back to 225 though was exactly what we were looking for. The Buster Sword is an amazing jack of trade weapons for Cloud with a balance of magic and strength. You're guaranteed to do more damage with Braver at 225%, but for those using luck up or you want to gamble, you could start using Braver as soon as 190%. Don't worry about getting to these staggered percentages, as I'll be going over a simple rotation to meet these multipliers after I'm done with all the weapons. Next up is the Iron Blade. Sadly, it doesn't get any amazing traits and is outclassed by the Mithril Saber, which has more magic. I didn't run any tests on this weapon since I never used it in my hard mode playthrough, but for those who want a little more strength with their magic builds, you can use it. Seeing that its strength is so close to the Twin Stingers, I'm going to say 245% is where you should see Braver out DPSing Infinity's End. And if you want to gamble with critical hits, then 220% is where you should start rolling those dice. The Nail Bat is the critical hit weapon for Cloud. I cannot seriously suggest this weapon as it never increases its base stats from 30, and to fully unlock the potential of this weapon, you'll be needing to play at 25% HP or lower. As someone who loves critical hit builds in every RPG I play, I have to give it a pass since other weapons easily outdamage it while being at safer hit points. Let's not forget it has a poor windup in Punisher mode, making you a sitting duck, and it could be easily dodged. Next up, we have the powerhouse for any strength build with the Hard Edge. This monster crosses the red line before anyone at just 200%, and most physical builds run luck up, so you can actually start seeing a DPS increase at just 165%, if Lady Luck's with you. My favorite weapon for Cloud is the Mithril Saber. While this sucker took the longest to find those magical numbers, I just love nuking my enemies with magic. But if you want to save MP or you're having excess ATB because of Tifa, you can weave in some Bravers at 270% for a DPS gain. As always, 220% for those feeling lucky. I know 270% seems high, but just one more weapon and you'll see how easy it is to reach it. Lastly, we have the Twin Stingers. I know a lot of people love this weapon for the counter stance ability that you get and the bigger MP pool it provides. At 245%, you can rest assured that you'll be pumping out more damage, and just like the Mithril Saber, we could start as early at 220% for those lucky high rollers. Alright, it's now time for that rotation I was talking about. When the enemy gets staggered, you're going to start off with a True Strike, followed up with a Rise and Fall. Now if you have enough ATB, you could do a True Strike right here, or you could do an Omni Strike followed up by a True Strike. Then you're going to want to do a Whirling Uppercut, and when you land, you could do a True Strike, or while you're mid-air, you could animation cancel the fall with a Dive Kick. Remember to always be weaving in actions with your other allies with their ATB, so you could be pumping out damage so the enemy dies. And usually by the time you hit this mark, the enemies are almost always dead, unless you're doing some really hard boss or something. Now for some miscellaneous things I learned in this experiment. I learned that Tifa's True Strike gives 30% to the Stagger multiplier, Rise and Fall is 20, Omni Strike is 25, and Whirling Uppercut is 5%. I honestly didn't notice until I started making this video. To think someone that likes min-maxing damage would have tested this out earlier, right? After 284 swings, not counting the Hard Edge because there's a node that gives weapon skills a 10% chance to become a critical hit. We had 36 swings out of 284 that ended up being a critical hit. That means at level 50 with a base stat of 72 luck, we have a 13% chance to have a critical hit. Now with the Hard Edge, we swung 74 times, and of those 74 swings, 12 of them crit. That means Hard Edge has roughly a 16% chance to crit with just 72 luck and the weapon node perk. Another thing I noticed is skills that require 2 ATB or more have a hidden multiplier on them. I remember getting off an Infinity's End with Hard Edge, but the Stagger wore off and it hit for 3,880. Even though Hard Edge always hit the damage cap at 210%, there's no way that 3,880 times 2.1 would get anywhere near there. We would only hit for 8,148, which means the game gives these skills more power when the ATB is at max. This is very useful for Barret, who has a lot of skills that are dependent on how many ATB you have. With that, I have covered everything. Thank you so much for watching, and don't forget to give this video a like if you enjoyed the informative content. Consider subscribing as I have plenty of content to cover, and of course you know I'll be doing this in part 2. Until then, I'll see you later.